The lead story today, NATO starts direct war with Russia. Hey guys, this is Marcel with the Canadian journalist, Ernie Racine News. I did a story about this just yesterday about how the US has approved of using US weapons launched from Ukraine at Russia. And well, since it's been approved, all of a sudden, 1 or 2 days later, it has happened. So Ukraine fired long-range US-made ATACMS missiles at Russia's Bryansk region. That is nowhere near the contested region where the battle has been in Ukraine. This comes after the Biden administration reportedly authorized Ukraine to attack Russia with long-range weapons, a move that President Biden repeatedly promised the American people he would not do. Russia responded to that news by saying that they would enact an appropriate response. Russian President Putin said that the Biden administration was, quote, continuing to stoke tension around this conflict. So cutting to the response from Putin, Russia vows response if Ukraine uses U.S. long-range missiles to hit its territory. And of course, this is on the BBC, for... I don't know what it stands for, BBC, just, communism from the English original. No comment on Storm Shadow missiles, the UK Defense Secretary. So it's going to be a bunch of malarkey. UK Defense Secretary John Healey says he won't comment on Ukraine's use of Anglo-Franco Storm Shadow missiles today. Quote, it risks operational security, and the only person that benefits from public debate is President Putin, Healey told the House of Commons on Monday afternoon. He added that he spoke to his U.S. counterpart yesterday and will speak with the Ukrainian Minister of Defense later today, reiterating the Prime Minister's comments that the UK must double down on its support for Ukraine. Yeah, on and on and on. Military-industrial complex from the bankers. Britain and France have supplied Ukraine with Storm Shadow missiles, but they remain under the same restrictions that the US ATACMS missiles were under until very recently. And to reiterate what the BBC is all about in terms of fear warmongering, here you have better late than never, Ukrainians on missile decision. So this was on the 18th of November, responding to the reports that the US had authorized the use of American long-range missiles to strike Russia. President Zelensky said, quote, strikes are not carried out with words, such things are not announced. Missiles will speak for themselves, end quote. So, back to the original story. Russia responded to that news by saying that they would enact the appropriate response. So, Russian President Putin said that the Biden administration was continuing to stoke tensions around the conflict. Well, Russia claims that it intercepted all 6 of the ATACMS missiles. Russia also updated its nuclear doctrine, which we talked about yesterday, as they have been promising to do in order to, quote, adapt to new realities, end quote. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov explained it here. We went over a bunch of this previously, but here's a story on TASS.com, November 19th. Russia adopts its nuclear doctrine to modern realities. Earlier on Tuesday, Russian President Putin signed a decree approving the foundations of state policy in the field of nuclear deterrence, the country's updated nuclear doctrine. So Dmitry Peskov said he explained that it was necessary to update the Russia's nuclear vision into realities of the modern day. What is the most striking example of the realities of the modern day? Authority in the White House in the United States takes a decision to use their weapons, American-produced weapons, against the Russian Federation, end quote, he said during a broadcast by the Indian news agency. We needed that update. We ensured this, Peskov emphasized. So, to skip ahead, the fundamental principle of the doctrine is that the use of nuclear weapons is a measure of last resort to protect a country's sovereignty. The emergence of new military threats and risks prompted Russia to clarify the conditions for the use of nuclear weapons. In particular, the amended doctrine expands the range of countries and military alliances subject to nuclear deterrence, as well as the list of military threats that such deterrence is designed to counter. In addition, the document states that Russia will now view any attack by a non-nuclear country supported by a nuclear power as a joint attack. Moscow also reserves the right to consider a nuclear response to a conventional weapons attack threatening its sovereignty, a large-scale launch of enemy aircraft, missiles, and drones targeting Russian territory, their crossing of the Russian border, and an attack on its ally, Belarus. Okay, and back to the original story. So, does the US and NATO really want to test to see if they're serious? While Western leaders dance around the idea of war with Russia, they are also in the company of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov right now at the G20 summit in Brazil. Lavrov is participating in the international conference and, quote, will address sessions on combating inequality, hunger, and poverty, as well as on the reform of the global institutions. He's also planning to hold a series of bilateral talks on the sidelines of the event, according to Russian Minister spokesperson Maria Zakharova. And let's go over to that G20 meeting where Biden and Trudeau are on film. And for those who don't know what Sergei Lavrov looks like, well, here he is. I actually got a strike on YouTube Censorship, what is that, a year or two ago, a couple years ago, when Lavrov was speaking at the diplomacy forum in Japan and answering questions from like CTV News and other people from around the world. And that video of him speaking at the beginning of the special operation by Russia in the beginning was what got me a strike. It was a hate speech from Censorship because I showed him speaking at the diplomacy forum. That's all I did. It was just clipped. Everybody else was using this. They're all filming it, the TV news networks, and I get Censorship striking me for having, just to show Lavrov speaking, essentially. They wanted to shut him up so you don't know anything that's going on with the war from the Russian perspective. Oh, that's right. This is actually the video that terminated my Ernie Racing Reports channel. Here was April 4th, dealing with Jarvis at YouTube, guys, like going back and forth. Hey, Jarvis, upon review, we have removed the video per our hate speech policies as it contains content that denies that a well-documented violent event took place. It's Lavrov's speech. So I say, so if that is the case, why is the same hate speech on other YouTube channels currently, specifically TRT World and France's 24-Hour English? I have those links right there. I included the timestamps of those two channels where the Minister of Foreign Affairs is at a live press conference during question answering and say the statement which we believe to be hate speech.
We just explained a lot of times that the situation has come when there was a direct threat to the safety and security of the Russian Federation. And after many years of our calls and appeals and urges to talk, no one heard us. And President Putin talked about it a lot of times, and the new facts that we see now at the territories that we liberate, in particular in Donetsk and Lugansk regions, they show that offensive actions against these republics were planned thoroughly, and it was planned to be...
There you go. So they had the exact clips. They're still on YouTube, but I took my whole channel down for that. It's so ridiculous. I want to remind you this is a live press conference from the Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs for educational purposes, and Sergei is, in my opinion, is not denying a violent event took place. I interpret as stating, anyways, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, that was the bullshit. So now we're at the G20 photo op, and look who shows up. We have Biden and Trudeau somewhere in there. There's Trudeau behind him. They missed the photo op. Look at these fools. Just some scum of the earth, huh? War dictators. Anyways, they made a whole funny thing in Rio de Janeiro where Biden missed the group photo of the world leaders at the G20 summit on Monday as a perplexed pool reporter could be heard telling colleagues that the commander-in-chief was behind the palm tree. Biden at 81 didn't make the family picture after buzz ahead of time, blah, blah, blah. So here, there's the photo, right? And there's Sergei should be in there somewhere. Sergei Lavrov, like we just talked about. Where is he? And Trudeau missed it as well. Yeah, look at all these G20 leaders. No, I don't see Lavrov in there. But anyways. So Biden's spokesperson insisted afterward that G20 organizers didn't wait long enough for him to arrive alongside Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Italian PM Giorgia Meloni. Due to logistical issues, they took the photo early before the leaders arrived. Yes. Anyways, guys, this is the Canadian Journalist. Make sure you like this video so it gets a little in this bullshit algorithm. And make sure you share it and subscribe if you're not. Let's hopefully this channel can get woken up. Cheers.